this building. So if throughout the night you feel the urge, you really gotta sue somebody, just grab me, we'll pop up to 7, we'll get you sorted out.
There's 3 or 4 people that I'd like to sue already.
Preemptively. So I met Megan a couple of years ago. I actually haven't known her that long, but I've known her longer than Ian, and I'm not. I was a bit worried that because I haven't known her that long, I wouldn't make the cut list for the guests. And so I said, you know, Megan, I'd really like to come. She said, well, all the guest spots are filled, but if you're willing to work, I think we could get you in. So Megan and I met clerking a couple of years ago. We worked at the courts together. And I remember one of my first interactions with Megan, I had brought in all my course material from the bar admission course. And I put it in my office all nice and neat. And Megan walked by. She popped her head in the door and she said, why did you bring all that junk? And I said, well, I might want to use it to refer to it. You didn't keep yours? And she said, yeah, I kept it. If by kept it, you mean threw it in the garbage. It was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. The other thing about Megan I noticed right away is that we had a dress code at the court. You know, the first day, everybody's there shiny, they've got their suits and they're all buttoned up and everything's ironed. And then things start to slide.
A lot.
It's Judge Frank.
Judge Frankel, everybody. So by about day 3, I see Megan, and she's got this kind of blouse on. If you can call it a blouse. And it's not really ironed. And I said something to her about, I don't know if you're really hitting the high points of the dress code there. And she said, well, the thing about me is I'm a boundary pusher. I'm going to push the boundaries of this dress code so hard. By the end of the summer, I'm going to be in here in flip-flops and a sundress. So then Megan started dating Ian. And when we first started dating, I had to slowly wheedle information out of her. So this is what I knew. I knew his name was Ian Johnson, and he worked in finance. So I went to the internet to do some research. And this is what I learned.
I'm going to sue you too.
Ian had lived in Japan for several years. He could speak Japanese. He had married several women. He was 58 years old. He was a nationally ranked tennis player. Some of those facts may or may not be true. After I got to know Ian, though, I learned the following. He is very generous. So generous that when he wanted to ski more often, he bought Megan a ski pass. He will drop everything he's doing to come pick Megan and her pal up at the nail salon and drive us to the theater so he won't smudge our nails. Wow. You can drop him into a party of people that he's never met and he'll be fine. He'll have everyone just laughing and having a great time. I remember we had a party at our place and Megan and Ian were there. And at one point Megan came up to me and she said, where the F is Ian? I haven't seen him in hours. So we went looking for Ian. We found him on the rooftop patio, wearing a fake fur coat, and drinking and telling stories. But the most important thing about Ian is that he loves Meghan. And what I had done there in my notes, ladies and gentlemen, is that underlined that and I bolded it and I italicized. So I hope I got that. And the thing about Meghan is that she loves Ian as well. So it's really a perfect match. So we have several speakers tonight. So I thought what we do is we get a couple going before we have dinner, and they're going to come around and take your order if they haven't done so already. So the first step on our list is Laura Fenton. Laura is a friend of Ian's, and she's going to be reading on behalf of another friend who is in Japan.
I need an escort apparently. Hi. I have to take a few things off first. Followed by putting a few things on. I'm speaking on behalf of Ted tonight. So I'm going to dress like Ted. How he dressed the first time I met him. Does anyone here understand Japanese?
I do.
I can't hear you. All together.
Say. Basically means corn dog. We'll get to that.
And because Ted wasn't all that smart, he would put his hat on before his shirt. I'm reading a speech that Ted wrote for Ian and Meghan. My great friend Ian. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Edward Sarich, and it is my honor to be speaking to you tonight about my good friend Ian Johnson. Having known and been friends with him for over 10 years, much of it when we lived in Kobe, Japan, I thought I would share with you some of my experiences with him in hopes of offering a brief glimpse into what Meghan has in store for her. My time spent in Kobe with Ian was one of the best of my entire life. Ian and I, single and semi-single men, were often out on the town looking for trouble. Born with more than his fair share of self-righteous indignation, much of our time together was spent with Ian chastising me for my coloring outside of the lines with regards to some of my intimate relationships. Ian never felt any remorse in informing whoever I was speaking to in those bars the status of the relationship that I was in, and it often sounded like this. Ted. Hi, nice to meet you. Random girl. Hi, my name is Yuka. Ian, don't listen to him. He has a girlfriend. He's a philandering monster. Stay away. Ian even took to updating one of our mutual female married friends on the rather bohemian attitude I took to dating. And then he has in parentheses, I'll call her Laura to protect her true identity. At the time, Laura was studying holistic medicine, and she was confident that her particular discipline was able to diagnose me. Laura referred to me as the syphilitic miasm. This diagnosis provided Ian and I with hours, no, days of laughter. Although we never actually figured out what it actually meant, we love the phrase, not only because it is as scornful as it is scientific, but because even though it is sheer nonsense, It still suggests a world of judgment. To this day, I have a plaque on the wall of my office that reads syphilitic miasma. All of the passwords for social networking and banking are some combination of the terms syphilis and miasma. We now have access to everything 10
Yeah, let's go in.
Very smart. So why am I telling you this story? Because it demonstrates something that Ian and I shared, and it is something that I think he shares with Megan as well. Ian loves words. He's the only friend I have who has ever called me in the middle of the night to read a passage from a book that he loved. He demands as many seemingly irrelevant details when listening to someone tell a story as he provides when he is telling a story himself. And above all, he's an ardent proponent of playful banter. The Crow. There is one more famous Ian story that he told me long ago. Allow me to share it with you because I think it says a lot about who he is as a person. What happened in this story was the source of several debates between us, not only about the particular situation, but about the nature of the language and communication in general. Ian was walking through a park near his home in Kobe when he stopped to watch a kindly older Japanese man feeding bread to the pigeons. Imagine his horror when this heartwarming scene turned dark and the man kicked violently at the crow that had gathered for the feast. Immediately, Ian's sense of irrational justice took over. He approached the man from behind and kicked him squarely in the ass. When the man whirled about in surprise, Ian, in an aggressive tone, yelled at him in Japanese, "Doshite sono tori?" Now, it is at this point in the story where our debate begins. Ian insisted to me that what he said to the frothing old man was understandably based on the context of the situation. In his mind, "Doshite sono tori" conveyed the meaning, "Dear man, why would you so generously feed these pigeons yet kick this lowly crow?" I disagreed, informing Ian that the only context that supplied meaning existed in Ian's mind. My alternative translation of "Doshite sono tori," based on years as an interpreter and researcher in the field of applied linguistics, was, "Dear man, why gibberish, 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 nonsense, nonsense." This interpretation is supported by the man's subsequent reaction, which was to go absolutely apeshit. He started freaking out, and in a spate of anger, picked up a huge rock and hurled it at Ian. That, by some miracle, bounced harmlessly off his back.
That's true.
Fearing that things would escalate even further, Ian gently tried to restrain the kind old man by tackling him, pinning his arms to the ground, sitting on his chest, and desperately whispering in the man's ear to please calm down. By this time, a crowd was gathering, watching in great confusion with creative reenactment on how Japan was defeated by Western powers in World War II. Ian had no choice but to dismount and flee the scene as fast as his little legs would carry him. But despite how it sounds, this is what I love about Ian. His love of a good story always took precedence over making himself look like the hero. All of us have been in situations that spiraled out of control, but few of us have the humility to share our folly with the world in such an entertaining way. And this, Megan, is what you have in store for you. Ian is a rough-cut diamond. He tells stories as if they were in prose. His speech begins to slur after a second beer, and he has been known to burn a bridge for the sake of what he believes in, but he is fiercely loyal to those he cares about, and he is a lover of wit, laughter, and nuance. The road before you will not always be without bumps, but it sure will be a fun one. I had him for several years. My little boy is all grown up. I pass him off to you.
brief pause from the speeches, and they're gonna get the rest of your dinner orders. And once that's done, the next step will be the soup fader. But I'm gonna let them take the orders now. Soup fader.
Good evening, everyone. I don't intend to make this speech too lengthy, but just as Franco, my lord, please don't cut me off if I go over my allotted time. This is the Court of Appeal. I don't practice in this jurisdiction, so just cut me some slack. So I just need to get one thing out there up front. After having too much wine a couple of years ago, long before Meghan ever met Ian, Meghan and I scheduled an event in her iPhone for October 28th, 2014. The subject of which was for Meghan to be in love and pregnant. The location of this event was Sue Fader's head. So as it turns out, my head was right. Yours was dead wrong. And I'm happy to make any further predictions for anyone else during the reception. That's a small fee. So Meghan and I became friends in the same way as best friends do, in the beautiful stories of lifelong friendship that you read in old books and watch in coming-of-age films. Our friendship began online. We met through an online group of individuals that would be attending Dalhousie Law the following fall. And upon realizing in our online discussions that we both lived in Edmonton, we decided to meet at a coffee shop. And as a side note, Megan, I don't think at the time we fully grasped how terrible lawyers really are as a group of people. Otherwise we probably never would have met each other. But we were totally naive, and we decided we would meet each other. So my first experience with Meghan was probably very similar to some of your first experiences with her. It was incredibly intimidating. At our first date, I discovered that she had a BlackBerry, which means a lot more in 2009.
It's the opposite.
She bought her clothes from really interesting places, not winners. She had a really interesting job, and she owned her own car, which I didn't. She'd already been to Halifax, and she knew all the cool places to go out and where to drink martinis. And I'd never had a martini before. She was incredibly cool, worldly, and smart, and she had an extraordinary air of confidence to her. Also, as some of you may have noticed, Meghan and I actually look a little bit alike. So when I first met her, I naturally also thought she was incredibly gorgeous. After I left our first date, I wondered, does Meghan even have any flaws at all? Fortunately, Meghan and I became very close friends during law school, and it was there that I discovered that she's not the perfect specimen of a human that she may appear to be. She does have some very, very, very tiny imperfections. So small that I'm sure none of you have ever even noticed them. First, Meghan is quite possibly the cockiest person I have ever met. She has abounding confidence in virtually every facet of her life. The frustrating thing, you can never really catch Meghan not living up to some cocky claim that she's made. For example, Meghan recently told me she'd like to become a TV comedy writer. That's a truly difficult thing to achieve, and sort of an absurd claim to make. But it wasn't until I was writing this speech that I realized I didn't even consider the possibility that that may not come true. If Meghan says she'll do something, it's very likely that it will happen. Second, Meghan is allergic to nature and to exercise. She once had an allergic reaction to an outdoor run. And yeah, there was a mild anaphylactic component to it. But I'm sorry, despite the insistence of pharmacists, $100 for blood for an EpiPen, and you turned out fine. Finally, Meghan is irrationally frugal. Meghan will splurge on an expensive dinner, and she considers herself very worthy of the finer things in life. But Megan will also drive into the rough part of town and purchase a used juicer that she found on Kijiji for her actual retail price. Then, years later, she'll resell that juicer on Kijiji just to save on moving costs. So despite all the flaws, Megan and I were able to remain friends after graduation, and we went on to practice in different provinces. In February of 2013, she met Ian. As most of you know, Megan and Ian's romance has been a very exciting whirlwind, and this is due in very large part to the fact that they're so compatible. Megan and Ian very happily share each other's interests. They play tennis together, they travel together, they eat at interesting restaurants together, and they spend lots of time with each other's friends and family. They even attend adventurous educational seminars together to further their knowledge of a powerful subject matter. Megan once described Ian to me as a very romantic person in every sense. And Ian, she's right. You see the positive in everybody, and you find everyone's story to be interesting and exciting. You're a sweet and loving person who's made my friend very, very happy. To you both, you're incredibly warm, adventurous, and genuine people, and I couldn't be happier that you found each other. You are perfect compliments, and your love is very obvious to everybody here. You're already wonderful parents to your daughter, and I look forward to watching you grow as a family and as a couple. Thank you for allowing me to share this amazing day with you. Cheers.
What course did you take together? Next up we have Joy Johnson. She's known Ian most of Ian's life. Ian's mother.
Can you hear me? Kind of a hard act to follow. Last night I checked the news. I was looking for a story about tunes in the sky. Nothing. How about pigs flying? Still nothing. Check the weather forecast. Hell hadn't frozen over. These are all things that I figured would happen before. Being Ian's mother was a challenge. Trying to stay one step ahead of him was almost impossible. I think he was born loud. Somebody asked me the other day if the music played loudly in our house and he had to talk. You always knew where he was. There was no problem laughing. But he was a great one. He was in his open concept classroom. So not only his class heard him speaking, so did several other classes as well. He talked. He was a big talker. Andrew rarely had to talk because he did it all for him. And as previously mentioned, he has this terrible sense of justice and injustice, especially where he was concerned. He could argue black was white, but I really thought that he was going to be the one to be the lawyer. When he was 6, we moved to Winnipeg, and before we even got into the new house, Ian was knocking on the door of the neighbors to meet them. And it was here that he met his first love, when he was 6 years old. Her name was Carrie. She had a brother who was a year older, and the 4 of them played quite a bit together. Carrie was very quiet, so Ian did her talking too, much to the teacher's dismay. There were a lot of sleepovers, And he took to wearing Carrie's nightgown. I was a little worried about that for a while. He also played hooky with her for the first time. It was below zero, and they decided not to go back to school in the afternoon. I have no idea what they did, but it became so cold that they had to come home, saying that class had been let out early. Well, I got really angry about them letting kids go home when they didn't know anybody was at home to let them in when it was so cold. The truth finally came out. I wasn't amused about this, but the women I played bridge with that, and I thought it was hilariously funny that a 6-year-old would play hooky in the first place. And then they would do it with a girl, was even better. Every year he tested each new teacher until his father got a little ticked off about it and finally said to one of them, "Look, I don't control them by remote control. You're going to have to deal with them yourself." And every year it was the same. And I was called to the school one time to watch Ian scrubbing the stairwell, the walls in the stairwell, because he put something on. He got the strap. In about grade 5, maybe, by saying, muttering under his breath, which is normal speak for most people, something rather not nice about his teacher. So, 10 years after high school, Jennifer arrived in Mr. Wise's class. For all of you who are kids know Mr. Wise. And you can imagine Mr. Wise's surprise when he found out that Ian was teaching. After all he put his teachers through all those years. I once saw him teach a class of Japanese kids, and he was actually quite good. And I had a friend who's a teacher who said that Ian probably empathized with students because he'd been there and he'd done it all. So, then we get to the high school years. Rob Grashy. There was a high school dance and they decided to polish off a bottle of Southern Comfort. I got this phone call from Mrs. Grashy saying that she had to go and rescue them and that one drunk was enough, I could come and get mine. And I want you to know, Rob, he blames you for this. Because you think you could not handle the liquor. You were out throwing up behind the church.
That's true.
Yeah, it's true, wasn't it? However, he was so drunk that I didn't leave his side the rest of the night because I was afraid he would aspirate. One day I came home, I don't know where it was. There's this note. Please wake me at 4 p.m. And it says, "Mom, where the hell were you?" The dog shit on the floor again. She was so glad to see me when I got home. Probably glad it wasn't you. The first thing she did was go outside, and I had a hard time getting her to come back in. She probably had to wait until she couldn't hold it anymore, and then she had to live with the guilt and the fear for the rest of the night. Anyway, don't you dare yell at her. Love Ian. By the way, if you're looking for the shit, they cleaned it up. P.S. This is so neat. I have a black stain on my sweater from climbing into Wendy's through the drive-thru window because I forgot to lock it. Can you see if you can remove the stain for me? Then when they were about 16 probably, Rob Grashy again, I was away camping and they broke into the house. My next door neighbor caught them. kick them out. But they'd been planning a party. And left behind when they were kicked out was a note, a list of what they were going to do. I'm certain, I know I say that, but I can't find it. But I remember a lot of it. Entertained the girls that worked with us quite a bit. They were going to use, the one that alarmed me the most, they were going to use candles so that the hydro bill wouldn't go up. I had visions of the idiots burning the house down. They're going to bring their own toilet paper so I wouldn't notice that any had gone missing. We put the garbage in the crawl space and at some point put it out. They were going to count the ice cubes. Is there one person in this room to tell me how many ice cubes? Do you remember what else you wrote?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Something about changing the sheets in case you got lucky. I don't know, I got a couple of girls over for a party. What my friend said to me, you can't say that at his wedding. Oh, yeah, I can. I worked the night shift. And at 3 o'clock, the charge nurse went around and did the round. Halfway through her round, she came out to me and she said, "Did you park next to me in the parking lot tonight?" I went, "Yeah, I did." She said, "Well, your car's leaving." Jumped up, went to the patient's window, looked out, and the girl lighted her green. There went my car. I still don't know how I got the key. So I went down to the parking lot, and there was a bicycle, or motorcycle rather, in my parking space. And in the morning, my car was back. Probably didn't think I even maybe done it. And his excuse was, do you remember your excuse?
No.
I was at a party, and I was the only person who wasn't drunk.
Rob Garashi was drunk, I had to drive him home.
So I had to drive people home, and I couldn't sit them all on motorcycles, and I had to come get your car. He never wanted a normal life. Went to Japan and stayed for years. I got a phone call from him one day, so middle of my night, so the middle of his night too, because the time difference, I was sleeping in the daytime. Mom, I can't breathe. What the hell do you expect me to do out here around the world? Go to the hospital! Well, can't they close? I thought they'll be ridiculous. Hospitals don't close in the middle of the night. They're open 24 hours. Well, as it turns out, they're not. Not in Japan. It cost him $80 to find a hospital that was open. Be careful what you wish for, Ian. Made the mistake one day of saying to his students, "Gee, I'd like to be in an earthquake." Got his wish. 5,000 people killed in that earthquake. It was quite a big earthquake. He survived. Got this collect phone call. And I just spoke to him that morning, his night before. Collect phone call from Ian. I almost didn't take it.
You said,
Collapse! Ian, collapse!
I'm like, "Mom, there's been an earthquake."
Okay, you can call collect.
She said, "Did you feel it?" And I looked at my friends and I said, "She asked if we could feel it." We definitely felt it.
And as has been mentioned before, he has this strong sense of justice, injustice. And one time, he was in a restaurant in Japan, and he stepped into the middle of an altercation. He really hated the way women were treated in Japan. And he stepped into an altercation where one of the patrons was actually hitting the waitress. And ended up finding himself in a Japanese police station, where he was told that the man that he had hit was a member of the Japanese Yakuza. And for those who don't know, substitute mafia here. So he was told to apologize. And he knew enough Japanese that he apologized in the most rude way that he could. Pretending that he didn't know enough Japanese to realize what he was doing. And then slept with a knife under his pillow for months after. retribution.
And a rope up over here.
He does everything with passion, from learning to play chess to a love of Elizabethan literature, and somebody here just mentioned Middlemarch. Has anybody read Middlemarch? At Ian's insistence. Particularly a love of Shakespeare. And what did Shakespeare say about lawyers?
Lock them all up. Kill them all.
To the annual Oscar competition with his sister. His grade 1 teacher once said to me, Ian, when he grows up, is going to be a terrific guy. But sometimes the things you admire in a grown-up are hell to live with in a 6-year-old. But she was right. He has a really soft side. He's kind, he's loving, generous to a fault, fun-loving, and a regular teddy bear with a big heart. We want to welcome Meghan to our family. She's very brave. I only met her for a couple hours, I think. But Jen and Tor were out here last summer, and when I came back, I said to Jen, so what's she like? And she said, Mom, she gets Ian. Just no mean feet, I gotta tell you. So he's finally settling down and having a family. He's been uncle to a lot of your kids. And Christopher calls him the best uncle ever. And now he's finally going to be a father himself. But I have warned Megan she will have 2 children. Anyway, Megan, welcome to the family. Fasten your seatbelt and hang on tight. You are in for the ride of your life. One thing I can guarantee you is that life with Ian will not be boring. I wish them all the best as they begin this exciting journey together.
Thank you very much, Joy. So we're going to have our first course now, and we'll take a little break from the speeches and enjoy your meal, and then we'll pick back up.
Megan and Ian celebrate the beginning of their lives together. I mean, they kind of already began their lives together, but you know, this is for real. So when I started planning this speech, I first went to the source I go to for everything. I Googled that shit. And I came up with some interesting little tidbits. Most of them from a site, I think, written by a woman who's, let's say, English is not her first language. So first of all, it said, you should talk about how you understand and accept that your daughter is now a lady. Mature,
Lady?
able to take her own decisions. I'm not sure, Megan, but I kind of feel you already know that. But in case not, yep. Also, they told me, it is pleasant to welcome the groom into your family, making you feel
Very pleasant.
good and comfortable whenever he will be around you, due to any occasion. Ian, I think we've already done that.
You've done that.
With booze and poker. But I do want to say that I'm very glad that Megan found you and brought you into our family. I then learned that I should try to make sure that crying time is significantly less than speaking time. Because apparently people would feel shocked if I talked for 1 minute and then cried for 3 minutes. So I'm going to give that my best shot. I thought about talking for an hour to counterbalance any crying I might do, but instead I'm going to just try not to cry. I hope. Lastly, on a site trying to sell me a book about how to give great mother of the bride speeches, I was invited to imagine overwhelming my daughter with my words. And leaving all of you hysterical and teary-eyed. And I was warned that I owe it to my daughter to come up with a speech that will be remembered forever. That was a lot of pressure. So I carried on with the Googling and I looked for some advice on marriage. And I read a lot of stuff that really frightened me. feel like the chances of a marriage lasting these days after people read that stuff on the internet, very, 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 very slim. But I did find a couple of things that I thought were pretty good advice. The first is, we're all, to varying degrees, foolish, weak, and often just plain inexplicable, and we always will be. Marriage is ironic because you're trying to build a pure relationship out of people who are ramshackle and messy. Trying to find comedy in the mix of high and low might be the best answer. So in other words, each of you will be at times a complete asshole. It's inevitable. And laughter is the best and possibly the only antidote. Secondly, be loyal. Megan and Ian, from this day forward, you're a team of two. It's you against the world. Both of you have played team sports, so you know no one else is allowed on the team, and no one else will ever understand the team's rules. To succeed, the team must never be adversarial. The team does not tear its members down, and team members don't sabotage the team's success. That was pretty good stuff, but it seemed a bit less punchy than what I was reading. So I tabled it for a bit, and one day in the office it came to me. Stuck to my computer in my office, I have two sticky notes. One says laugh, and the other says, one says laugh, and that's to remind me that mistakes, confrontations, and irritations really can't touch me if I remember to see the humor in them. The second one says, be kind. To remind me that no matter how annoyed I might be, or how insensitive someone else might be, I'll always get my point across more effectively, and feel better at the end of the day if I do it with kindness. Megan and Ian, I realize those two sticky notes say everything you need to know about marriage. I'm pretty sure that to laugh together every day, and always remember to be kind to yourselves and to each other, equals a lifetime of happiness, which is what I wish for you. So, gracefully done. So here is my gift to you.
Thank you, Lorraine. So we're going to have our main course now, and I'm just going to let Ian's father, Rick Johnson, know that he's on deck for after our main course. All right, enjoy your meal. So Ian Johnson has said that he would like a speech right now, and what Ian wants, Ian gets. So I'd like to welcome up Ian's father, Rick Johnson.
When I took public speaking, there were 3 rules. Stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, and shut up to be appreciated. So I'll try and make this short. Clearly, Ian's mother's recollection of his young life are far more vivid than my own. But I think I will leave it to his buddies to provide the embarrassing, intimate details of Ian's life. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say how proud I am of my son. It's a rare opportunity that a father gets to stand up in public and tell people that they're proud of their boy, and I certainly am. Ian was a centennial project.
What? No, I'm 37. What are you talking about?
And he had the wanderlust at a very young age. I can recollect when we moved on to the base in Ottawa, lived in married quarters. Ian was barely a toddler, hardly old enough to walk. and yet he struck off for the base exchange, which was maybe half a mile to a mile away from our house, had to be returned by the military police. A few years later, there was another somewhat more alarming incident. We were back at the cottage, and he decided that he would go to Grandma's house. My mom also had a cottage on the same lake, about half a mile away from us. And we suddenly became aware that Ian was no longer playing around the cottage, and there was a bit of a panic while we scoured the lake shore. Ian eventually showed up, totally perplexed at why we would be the least bit concerned that he'd gone to see Grandma. And that wanderlust followed him through his life. We know that everybody here, I think, knows that Ian spent a good long time in Japan. Talked into going over to teach English with one of his good friends from high school in Belleville, Rob. And I'm sure he went over thinking that he was going to live close to Rob, and that he was going to be teaching in the same place. And instead, he wound up having to go about a 2-hour high-speed train ride south of Tokyo to find a job on his own and accommodation. And this is something that I have always been quite amazed at. I spent a lot of time in the Air Force, in Air Transport Command, traveling the world, and always felt that I was comfortable traveling all over different parts of the world. But when I stopped to think about it, I had a very much different experience. I was flying with a group of air crew, landing at airports where English was the language of aviation, and staying in international hotels where the staff invariably knew English, spoke a little. So by comparison, I had a very easy time of it. And I had one lucky occasion to go over and visit Ian in Kobe, and discovered that even when you went to the main railway station in Tokyo to catch a train, you could not read the Japanese hieroglyphics. The alphabet or the written language is entirely different. And to my amazement, not even the local police spoke English, not even pidgin English. So to be able to go over there to a strange city with no friends and a little more grasp of the language than I think you knew some Japanese, right? Kawasaki, Toyota, Sony. Yes, right. So it's always been astonishing to me that Ian actually stayed and found a job, found accommodation, created a circle of friends, very close friends obviously, because some of them are here today, and prospered. We were more than pleased when he eventually returned to Canada, and some years went by, and we thought, he's never going to find a girl, he's never going to get married. And then, lo and behold, we got the announcement that yes, he had a serious girlfriend, and that was followed up very shortly by the announcement of your engagement. And so we were just thrilled to bits. Now I have to refer to my notes. I just wanted to say that we were absolutely overjoyed when we discovered or got the announcement that not only were you getting married, but Meghan was expecting. And I think one of the other things that I wanted to mention was that why the fact that Ian is going to and Meghan are going to become parents, why that Ian is going to become a father is so emotional for me is that throughout the years, Ian has always wound up being the favorite uncle to the children of his closest friends. And it's always been my impression that he would make a wonderful father if he ever had any of his own. And so it's a wonderful pleasure to know that you're married, you're going to be a father, and we're really looking forward to watching your kids grow up and to enjoy being doting grandparents too. So I just want to conclude and say we're very, very pleased, very, very happy, and all the best in the future.
Thank you very much, Rick. Some of you may recognize Rick from inside the actors studio. Next up, we have Ian's friend, Justin McLaughlin, who has come all the way from Australia.
The crowd, emanating from the mob, when out of the blue we hear,
Norman! Geez, Norman, you gotta get down here! Where the hell are you? Who's that? Is that Jewel? Craig it! Craig Jewel! Love Jewel, the guy!
so let me look at each other like, oh my god, who brought the loudmouth schnook? You know what?
Justin did.
This loudmouth schnook ended up being our anchor in Japan, the man. Act 2, sportsman. I have to say the first thing that comes to mind to describe me is sports. Watching, playing, betting, recalling plays from games gone by, and recapping in vivid detail. One of my fondest memories with Ian was when he was hosting, watching the Super Bowl, Wimbledon, the World Series. So the games were played basically 7 a.m. Monday morning in Japan, so we'd have to go to work. And Ian would set up the VCR, and we'd tee it up for the Monday night. I remember watching him come off the train, and he's got his fingers in his ears, and he's going, blah, 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 blah. He looked like he was the guy on the wheel in Midnight Express, like that case. Hilarious. So here are my Sports Center top 4 Ian sporting moments. So Ian and I have a ridiculous rivalry in badminton, tennis, and golf. But a fourth sport that came into play was the ring section of the men's gymnastics. So one night we had a bit of a heavy night in Kobe, and we're riding home on the train, and you know the ring. So we barely anybody on the train, and I grabbed the rings and I did the old skin the cat. right? Looking at back again. And he's sitting there and he's like, what the hell is that? Yeah, that's the old skin of the cat. What do you mean? And he goes, where'd you learn to do that? I said, I took some gymnastics back in the day, didn't I? They used to call me, I know, they used to call me the Ring King. So Ian's competitive spirit kicks in, right? He goes, oh yeah, Ring King? I'll show you Ring King. So he gets up, this big lug, whoosh, the feet go up, the shoes are down. Up he goes, down again. I know the ceiling, and then, whoa! Oh, he's gonna make it, he's gonna make it. No, he's not. He goes over, 3 releases on the left ring. Hits his head on the steel frame of the cage. Blood gushing everywhere. The Japanese grabbing the newspaper. Nothing going on here. So we got up for the next stop, and off to the hospital we go, and I don't know, 5 stitches? 4 stitches? You can't see that one. But when you get like me in, I don't know, a few months, you'll be able to see it. Lovey ended up taking out the stitches. So that's that was number 4. Number 3, you're gonna tell your grandkids about that.
Oh my God.
So here's Ian, right? We're having this massive golf tournament. And we're on the 18th hole, we're all tied up. I hit one out of the fairway, Ian puts in the sand trap, drive up with the golf cart. Ian pulls up the 3-wood. 4-wood. Whatever. With his 4-wood. And here's the walk, and you all know it well. Okay, ready? It's the Steven Seagal, kind of half Buford T. Pusser from Walking Tall. Here's Ian. I hate that walk. I love you, man, but I hate that walk. And so he lifts the sunglasses, takes them forward, and he goes, you're going to tell your grandkids about this. All right, here we go. Right? This is the shot. And he addresses the ball. Complete whip. Totally misses it. Right? And we had major money on this game. And he goes, hey, you're not going to count that, are you? I know. Practice swing. Yeah, right. He addresses. And I said, are you serious? And we had this big argument. I said, wait, what would be worse? Topping it or completely missing it? Alright, I guess you can count it. He actually ended up winning the tourney on that one. Playoff. So then, number 2, Jean-Claude Johnson. Skiing in Kimberley. They had a slalom course set up. Jean-Claude Key, dating myself again here. Anyway, so they had a slalom course set up. Ian, not a lot of skiing experience, but you were tenacious on that hill. You had the speed. So he takes on Lovey, Laura, on a slalom, basically a one-on-one. There was 2 sets of gates. I'm down at the bottom. I watched him go, and you had her by, what, 4 or 5 gates? Yeah, you were totally ahead. He's getting up to the last gate, and he does the classic Johnson. Right, like the victory cheer. Catches a tip, face plant, Lovey comes into the wind, and you taught me this word, Schadenfreude. Right? The joy of the misfortune of others. And I don't think I've experienced heights of joy like that. I mean, Lovey didn't write everything, but to have you fail, it lifted me to heights I'll never experience. And then, here's the number 1 TSN sports moment, Skull. So Skull is half skiing, half golf. So we're out at Kimberley in the final weekend. They just lined up with the Masters, do a Masters final thing, right? Sunday, final closing thing. So we're up in the sun pit, you know, having a lot of fun. And I thought, I'm going to bring up a 7-iron, a pitching wedge, and a few of those orange wiffle balls. And we'll head down the slope at the end of the day and do a little golfing. What's that? Yeah. So we do the wiffle balls. It got boring real fast, right? So then I pull out the old Titleist, And we're knocking these walls. Just the best time, right? Remember with the skis and the stance and everything. So a group skis up beside us, and we sort of waited. And we said, no, play through. Where you go? Oh, no, we want to watch. We want to watch. And so Ian takes up the ball. Yeah, stand back. Yeah. There's one girl, what's the plane? The 90 degrees or the 180? She's at 179. Just off like this. Ian lets her go right off the toe. Drops her, hits her right in the ear. Oh my God. He dropped her. It was ridiculous. Oh, death. Anyway, she had a little blood. She was okay. I've never seen you speechless. You should go over and see your story. Her boyfriend comes up to the hill. He wants to have a real Donnybrook with us. So the next day we go skiing. We're put on alternate clothing. Okay, so now we're on to Act 3, the Haiku Luchada Master. So this one's borderline inappropriate, but more for me than for Ian. So he was just doing what came natural to him as a gifted writer. I have this certain affliction. I can now talk about it after a bit of therapy. From time to time, I have a condition known as flatulence horribilis, or sometimes known in certain circles as the Shardy. So I was relaying one of my episodes to Ian when he came back with a perfect haiku to sum it up. I found one in an old email that I'd like to share now. So watch the syllable change here. We're going 757, right? The true haiku. So there's Ian. 신자라나이다요. 오나카이다. Demo unchara. So the translation, he comes back with a perfect translation, the same 757. Can't believe what's happening. My stomach feels fine, but I shit my pants again. To me, that is genius. But I told Ian, I said, if this whole Sherpa thing, doesn't work out, you can always be a Shardy haiku master. So here we go, we're moving right along, coming to the end. Act 2 or Uncle Ian. And you guys have sort of had a bit of a feel for this with the friends' kids. So we used to go, who's that knocking at the door? Somebody ringing the bell. Uncle Ian, kick him out. Yeah. Ian had to be the best uncle our kids had growing up. He taught them how to play chess. So, no, Walt. Once again, if I can reiterate, pawn 4 to rook 3 is always the best move in this situation. There's, well, Daddy, what does reiterate mean? And then he moved on to Texas Hold'em poker. Now, kids, pay special attention here. This is where you want to go balls to the wall and ride the flop for all it's worth. So then Maddie, Daddy, what's balls to the wall? Last night, Maddie was having some trouble figuring out Hamlet. We're all in Kimberly. With Uncle Ian, and then Maddie mentions she had a Hamlet test on Monday and was having trouble navigating her way through it. Then Ian, did someone mention Hamlet? He jumps to his feet. He and Maddie absolutely captivated, role-playing for a couple hours. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. To be or not to be? Maddie was hooked and ended up acing the test. Nice. Yeah, that was awesome. So I was running this by Lovey about the speech, and she said, you know what, you need a common thread. Not just a bunch of who's skull, the Shardy haiku, So this speech has the common, it's passion. Passion. That is Ian. From enthusiastically smashing his head on the train, to his drinking, his cussing, and love of sports, passion's the common link. passionately jumps at the chance to bang out a shardy haiku, or take up the challenge on the court and passion for everything you do in life. If Ian, you put half the passion into being a husband and a father to your daughter that you did being friend of the year, friend for life, and an uncle, Megan and young daughter, you're in good hands.
So we're going to have some coffee and tea service. There's going to be dessert stations. And I also want to remind you, which Lorraine reminded me, that if you haven't signed the guest book Jenga, please do so. And then we've got a couple more speeches after we all have a bit of dessert.
It's brilliant.
Before the speeches started, I was about 3 months pregnant. So, to be honest with you, I was getting pretty nervous about speaking in front of everyone. So if I stumble or I slur, I apologize in advance. But I did take some shots before I went up here. So I'm a little bit more confident. Like, hey, I saw Megan do it before she went down the aisle and it totally worked for her. So, and it's working. So, my name is Celeste, as Jessie has mentioned. And when people ask me how I know Megan, my response is very simple. She's my best friend. And I know that doesn't answer the question at all, but it's simple and it's to the point you don't want to hear a long story. When Megan asked me to be one of her bridesmaids, I was flattered. She told me that she wanted an old friend, a family member, and a new friend to stand beside her as she said her vows. However, looking at the bridal party, groomsmen included, it's pretty obvious how they chose. They chose the best looking people they know. So you're all welcome. Joking aside, I feel that my relationship with Megan fits into all these categories of old friend, a family member, and a new friend. Megan and I first met when we were about 14 years old. Megan actually remembers the first time we met. She told me that it was in the dressing room before ringette practice. Apparently, I was quite talkative and loud, which is super hard to, I know, right? Honestly, I can't remember, probably because I couldn't hear her. Megan has always been the more quiet and thoughtful one in our relationship. However, her quick wit and sass mouth, as I like to call it, has gotten her into trouble once or twice. One time in particular that stands out is when a group of us decided to go out dancing on White Ave. After one too many drinks and one too many bumps on the dance floor, taken and given by also another group of females, Megan took it upon herself to comment on one of the other girls' attire. While looking her up and down, Megan said, and I quote, "Oh, if I knew it was a prom, I would have worn my prom dress too." The girl's reaction to Megan's comment involved Megan's glasses being slapped off her face, a lot of tears, followed by a lot of other things that happened. Megan has not always been able to physically back up her sass mouth, but her sass is always hilarious. Megan has a very close relationship with her family. Their family get-togethers, no matter it be in Salt Spring Island, Switzerland, or Soup, are always filled with great food, great company, and a lot of laughing. Megan's relationship with her granny is a very special one too, who, by the way, turns 85 years young at the end of this month. Megan loves her granny so much that she is willing to ditch her mother at a ferry terminal to hop into the car, into Granny's car. Now that wouldn't have been an issue if Megan actually told her mom she was doing that. And this is way before the time of every man, woman, and child has a cell phone.
So she hopped in, and her mother actually ended up missing that ferry because she was checking every vehicle and bathroom to see where she was. And I actually had to text Lorraine because I vaguely remember an I had nothing to do with this, so Megan. But I do think I remember like our names being called over the intercom. So Lorraine said she did do that, and she also did it on the ferry, but doesn't know on account that she wasn't even on the ferry. And I was like, LOL. Megan has included me in many of their family trips, and this is why I see her not only as a friend, but as a family member too. Megan's education and sense of adventure has taken her all over the world. I feel blessed that she has now landed and settled so close to me. We have been able to reconnect, and it has been a joy to share her accomplishments. Obviously, passing the bar has been a huge accomplishment, but so was finding this nice Jewish boy to marry. Not to mention the excitement of meeting this new little mitzvah in the summer. So, with that being said, I would like to make a toast to my best friend Megan and her new husband, Ian. L'chaim.
That's okay.
So next up we have our last speaker, and you've heard a lot about him throughout the evening, peppered in speeches here and there. Rob Gureshi.
Already been made 10 times. It's been awesome. Well, everyone's delivered such a great speech. I'm not only humbled, but feel that this thing has spent the last few weeks on collaborating with so many friends around the world. Just digging great stories. Just seems like they're just not as good. So, but I was inspired, and I feel that the table over there kind of opened up some new content. Kind of like, I know the justices here, we had a little bit of kind of some boundaries that we were supposed to follow. So I think we might be able to bring in the jerk off joke a little later. So we're really pleased about that development. Something we've been spending the last 2 weeks on deliberating on. So anyway, well, congratulations, and most importantly, to Megan, the beautiful bride. We're so happy that Ian found you, and everyone from Ian's background in Belleville and Queen's University and Ontario is just so happy for him, and he met such a great bride. So no one knows Ian by the name Hunter, but if you hear it, that's what we all call him, and I'm not going to bore you with telling you why we do that. So it is an honor, and I've known Ian all the way literally from grade school to being a partner together at our brother's firm, Sherpa Asset Management in Vancouver. So it's a pleasure not only to grow up with him, but also 25 years later to be able to work together in our first job. Our memories span so far, and it's one thing that I don't know if anyone said this, but Ian's done just an amazing job of being able to go from teaching English in Japan to working in the finance industry, and as I say, he's a partner at a hedge fund in Vancouver, and he recently passed the almost impossibly challenging CFA. I think I just saw a glimmer of hope in Ian's eyes that perhaps I will take the high road here and not use this platform for revenge. Because there's a few people here who were there, but 15 years ago at my own wedding. In Italy, I was too scared to give Ian this very responsibility because I knew what he was capable of. We all know what he's capable of now. He could unleash him. So I had to choose an alternative best man. Someone who would play it safe. And as you can imagine, Ian felt gypped. Everyone who knows Ian knows he felt almost betrayed, but definitely gypped. Because he had already written a speech. And I don't even want to know how long he spent preparing that. And it got even worse when a number of Italian and British people started speaking about my wife, who's not here tonight. But Ian felt so betrayed that he felt especially betrayed when two of my new friends, as he called them, had to seize him and take him outside to protect my best interests. But at the end of the evening, we were so happy, my wife and I. We watched 40 or 50 wedding guests, friends from Canada, America, England, Italy, get on this bus that we had specially arranged to take from the wedding destination, from the wedding site back to their hotels. About a 20-minute drive. And I felt victorious. The night was the best night of my life. Like, I'm sure this is yours. And it went off without a hitch. Ignorance was blissful until the very next morning when I received a call from my brother. Rob, Hunter ambushed the bus last night. He had a captive audience. He got me. Big time. I went on to learn that he embellished a couple stories big time. And some cultural and language translation issues made it even worse. And the stories were grossly misunderstood. Sophie's friends from England and Italy look at me in a different way now. If they look at me at all. So, thank you for that, Ian. I will be telling the full details of the story at the bar later.
And on the bus home.
And on the bus home. But the opportunity to tell stories about Ian is truly amazing. It's literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But the challenges are even greater. Because as we've already heard, there's just so many to choose from. Like, everyone has a content-rich environment here. It's just crazy. It keeps writing itself every day. As recently as the bachelor party. I mean, we go from the white leather tie days, to the selling vacuum cleaners days, to the traveling circus days, the priesthood in Japan, which I think we've already heard about, and the list keeps going on. But making it worse and possibly impossible is the bulk of these stories may not be appropriate for this general audience. So I think an only parallel this experience is one that Ian is very familiar with. Many times we would say to him, if you could just try telling that joke or that story, or do that, or do this, and try to be funny, but do it without offending anyone. Just stay within the boundaries. And every time Ian was put in the situation, over the years, he did one of two things. He would either go quiet after attempts to deliver this watered down attempt, or he'd just let it rip. I think we've heard a lot about the letting it rip. So, I know we've already gone way into overtime of speeches, so I'll try to, I'd love to be able to ambush all of you in a box. Or if the justice, I think there's a phone call for you. I know. That's the main matter here. So, what we thought to do was, was a lot of collaboration from our friends here. Let's just summarize Ian. Who's that character that we know? Ian has always excelled at the arts, acting, writing, and reading. Those are his three things. So let's just focus on those three things and show how he's grown over the years. Acting. He was a star of the high school play, and after a great performance, he would always wear his patented white leather tie and a matching gown. He took these acting skills and advanced them to the next level at Queen's, where he would recite Shakespeare when drunk, which was most evenings. After 2 beers, it was Hamlet. After 4, it was Macbeth. And if he was lucky, Romeo and Juliet later in the evening. He later expressed his acting skills in roles as a vacuum cleaner salesman, in the traveling circus, and ultimately in Japan, where he played the role of a priest. Ian performed close to 1,000 wedding ceremonies with Japanese couples looking to be married Western style. Jonathan? Yeah! Toast to you too. At his peak, Ian was ranked number 2 in Japan, and he will remind you every time that the number 1 guy was actually a legitimate priest. So for years we called him the bogus priest of Kobe. I think we got to. Writing. Ian is an excellent writer. He shows some very interesting subjects to write about over the years. Really interesting ones like golf. We wrote a full screenplay based on 4 men playing golf. It's set in real time. It's like, you know that show 24? Right? You know that one? It's like that, but there's no action, no suspense, no drama, and no tickets. Many of his readers and friends, who probably the same thing, agree that his writing hit its pinnacle with a legendary email titled, "Whose Log?" It was a mystery story set in my bathroom, in my flat in London. Actually set in the toilet in my bathroom, in my flat in London. We all loved it, but the critics said it stunk. So from then on, his writing has mainly been focused on R-rated text messages to Megan. Last is reading. Ian is the most well-read person I have ever met. He has read everything: Dante, Tolstoy, Dickens, Homer, Dumas, you name it, and Shakespeare is his favorite. As I mentioned, he can recite most plays from his memory. It's truly amazing. I remember being so proud of him. It was exam week, second year at Queen's University, in dead of winter. I was walking a nice girl home from the library. It was late. We were walking right by our house. She was a keen English literature student. I was trying to impress her. I said, that's my house. Optimistically, I said, that's my room up there, top left window. There was no interest at all from her. And just as we were about to walk away, the light came on in the next room. The window went out of blind. It was Ian. He walked through the door and into his room. And the lady was stunned. "It's the Shakespeare guy. You know him?" Cool. It's amazing. I said, he must be studying or reading more, because he's the most well-read guy on campus. I thought that might show this girl a different side of me. She was so impressed, perhaps even inspired to see him. She just stood and watched. He walked to his bed and reached down to grab some reading material. I was a little confused because I couldn't recall that there was a bookshelf under his mattress. They didn't really look like textbooks. They looked more like magazines. It all happened so fast. We just watched him. His next move was to close the door. And back in those student ghetto days, they didn't have locks. So I watched Ian grab a chair and wedge it on the door. I had seen enough. And I knew where this could be going, so I suggested to the young lady that we leave. But this young romantic suggested we stay. And I really didn't want to see what was going to happen next. I will never forget the look on her face when Ian opened up the centerfold. Her drawers dropped and she ran away. Thanks again to my dear friend Ian. She never looked at me in the same way again. But we had to get one in. We thought we got clearance on that story. So once again, a toast to Ian and Meghan. Great night tonight. Congratulations.
Megan and Ian would now like to say
Keep it short.
Hello.
Keep it short.
This will be very short. We just want to say some thank yous, actually. Where to start? I'm going to start not at the top. Save that for last. Thank you to my brother Court and my beautiful cousin Sarah. And it was absolutely beautiful, and I left it to you, and I'm glad I did. Thank you so much. Judge Frankel.
Yeah.
A+, that was one of the best I've ever seen. As a professional.
We'd like to thank, of course, our bridal party. Celeste, Julianne, Susan, thank you so much for standing up here with me today and for your beautiful words.
Oh yes, and this band of idiots, I'd like to I know who you are. Especially Justin for making his way from Australia and Angie. Oh. Sorry, I retract that, but I'll get back to you.
We'd like to thank Christopher. Thank you very much for driving Cole for his first experience.
Cole was going off the rails. Christopher was like, he had ice in his veins. He's like, it's not going to happen on my watch.
Not an easy guy to tame.
No.
Thank you for that.
Biggest lunatic in the room.
My beautiful niece, Peyton.
Yes!
We would like to thank Jessie, our wonderful MC.
I know. I was expecting much worse. Yes, I've been the victim of many of her jokes, so I know what she's capable of.
We'd like to thank Julianne, in addition to being a bridesmaid, also transported the wine for tonight's ceremony.
Ross. Justin and Angie. Australia.
We did not rehearse this. Just so you know. This is the first time.
This is off the cuff.
Yeah.
We're really making it. And everyone who made it from Victoria, which is Megan's mom, Bob Lee, Court Steph, Lisa, Sarah, Emily. From Edmonton, Luke, Susan, Peyton, and Cole. From Ontario, my family, Rob and Kelly. From San Fran, Rob, and unfortunately Sophie couldn't make it tonight. But, and from Japan, Ted, who came to us through the medium of Laura. And my parents.
And while we're on the topic of parents, like I said, I wanted to save the best for last. I want to thank my mother, who has the longest list of things here that anyone did to this wedding. I'd like to start with the beautiful centerpieces on all your tables.
Take a second to look at these. They are
Grown in my mother's garden. And then assembled today by my mother and my auntie and my beautiful Lisa. So thank you very much for asking. Massive quizzes, wedding programs.
Speaking of quizzes, I believe we need to
Yeah, we need
determine
to deal with that. We'll get there. And I can't say enough
We stole that idea from her wedding.
Yeah, and she also made ours, so thank you very much.
I don't know what the prize is. I don't know if anybody knows what the prize is for the quiz.
We'll get there.
I do. Just name your
Okay, so we should do that first.
Because you're gonna do that too.
Okay, so I would like to personally thank everyone in the Smith-Pelzer family, from Granny down to Peyton and Cole, for the warmth and love with which you welcome me into your amazing family. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. And special thanks to Lorraine, who raised such an extraordinary woman in challenging circumstances, and to all of you who must have been a great help to her. Patty is very lucky to be related to all of you. I know how lucky I am to be joining such a fun and wonderful family. I will be equal to my luck. I honestly can't express to you how excited I am about sharing the future with all of you. And of course, I want to thank Megan for finding me and for seeing beyond the rough exterior of this doe-eyed. I've written a very long speech about how amazing Megan is and what a wonderful thing it is to be marrying the woman of my dreams. But I was informed that there are too many speeches. As many of you know, I waited a long time to find someone like Megan, and I was worried that I might never find her, and I thank God that I did. I can give you a very, very long list of Megan's amazing qualities. I think most of you know that. But I'll keep it short, and I'll tell you about a dream I had that shows the impact she has on my subconscious. It was a simple dream. I was in a deep, dark water, and I heard a voice calling me, and after a long struggle, I made it to the surface into the light, where Megan was calling for me, boat, shrouded in a beautiful glow. I told Megan about this dream, and she said, sounded to her like I dreamt that I was a mermaid. One day Megan and I were talking about how Al-Qaeda suicide bombers believe they will be rewarded in heaven with 72 virgins. I joked that I wasn't interested in 72 virgins, but I would blow up the Pentagon if I was promised 72 Meghans. Without skipping a beat, Megan says, "What's the little one? Do it." That's what people in heaven dream of heaven. I love how she makes me laugh and surprises me every day. Sometimes I'll catch her laughing to herself and ask her what she's laughing about, and she'll quote something I said. And I often find myself doing the same. And it is the greatest blessing in the world to find someone who gets you and who you get. I feel lucky and blessed tonight. William Butler Yeats once wrote, "Ask where man's glory begins and ends, and say it was I had such friends." Imagine as I'm falling in love with this amazing woman, I start to meet her friends and family and find them as amazing as her. There's a great quote that being in love is like discovering a concealed ballroom in a house you've long inhabited. I didn't know half of the people in this room a year ago, and here I am discovering this room full of the most amazing people I could ever imagine. And the beautiful thing is, the fun is only just beginning. So let's turn up the music and get this party started.